All right, another month, another solo raid. This time around, we have Modernia again, but wind version. Hope your fire units are ready as we gotta bring in the heat to this boss. Let's go ahead and break down. First, as usual, bring the Elemental Advantage Fire unit to deal with the Elemental Shield QTE. Second, a throwback from the old Modernia, don't skip the cutscene too early. Skipping early will make the units target the wings at the start of the fight. But if you wait a bit and either you don't skip or skip when Modernia appears on your screen, then the units will instead focus at the core at the start of the fight. This slightly helps faster for energy generation at the start and most importantly help destroy the core as soon as possible. Your main goal at the start of phase 1 is to destroy the core as soon as possible, otherwise the boss will do an AoE where it can stun your units. Next, and this is probably the main thing about this boss that will net you more damage for some teams, and that there is much more consistent pierce available to hit on this boss that is between parts and the body. Units like Alice, Asuka, Redhead, Grave are some examples of pierce units, and lining up your hits to specific spots of the boss where you can hit both the body and the parts essentially doubles your damage depending on the team. Phase 1 consists the boss rotation of part spawn, guns, and the wing bombs, and then just a repeat of just parts spawning and then the guns and the wing bombs. Your main goal is to destroy the core first and then as much as possible destroy both wings and skirts. The parts respawn only if you destroy both sides of the particular part. For example, the wings only respawn if you destroy both left and right wing. If you only destroy one of the wings before the time for the core respawn, then the other wing won't respawn. Going into phase 2, the boss teleports to the back and does missile phase. At the start of this phase 2, the parts do spawn unconditionally. The boss then does Elemental Shield QTE, and you want to do this fast because the boss throws more missiles during it, and if you do fail it, she teleports back and does AoE stun mechanic. Throughout this phase, the boss throws missiles at us and respawns wings during teleporting. The boss then repeats the Elemental Shield QTE and missiles and teleporting a second time. During this phase, there's multiple ways to tackle this phase to make it painless. Here are some of the methods that I did find pretty useful. One, covering to dodge is the most common way. Another is to just let the AI auto kill the missiles incoming. The other is to enable aim assist so that you can easily target the missiles. Another is to pause to reposition your mouse and target the incoming missiles as well. And then the last one is to just kind of react when it arrives closer to you. Different ways do offer different flexibility on maximizing damage to the boss. Different teams may approach this differently as well, as some teams may have access to healer, so they could perhaps ignore some of the missiles incoming. Now on to phase 3, this has similarity to phase 1 with a slight twist of the circle QTE. Failing this is pretty much a wipe. Dealing with this is relatively simple, as just making sure you have full burst or otherwise start hitting them early or with rocket launcher or machine gun. If you're still having trouble, consider remembering it when it happens and save your full burst when it's about to happen. This phase 3 has a pretty standard rotation of just the sparks respawn and then doing the standard guns and then into the wing bombs and then doing the circle QTE and then the parts respawn once again. And then she pretty much repeats this one other time. And then finally, after doing the circle QTE about 3 times, we move on to phase 4, which is the sword phase. In this sword phase, it is pretty straightforward. There's a slight change on this phase, and instead of using guns and bombs at us, she charges up her sword, which we cancel by doing the QTEs that show up. All the while here, just make sure you're killing the parts as usual, and sometimes people do forget that the core still respawn, and that's the main mechanics of the boss. Alright, now moving on to the teams. These are the teams that I have set up, and as usual, I will provide the link down in the description so you guys can check it out on your own, but I do have some examples on this. Pretty much the most standard team 1 or slash team 2 is the infinite ammo crown team. This is the default for most people due to the ease of access of the infinite ammo with Alice and crown and privity. Second is on the other alternative crown is you can also use the fire team, which is consisting of Rapi and Ray and then Modernia, and either Modernia or Ludmilla, you can use either. The downside on this one is it has a low energy burst generation, but it's mainly a consideration if your Alice Grave team can make up for the damage loss. Speaking of which is the other team, either team 1 or team 2, which is your grave team, which also consists of similar teams units as well, and you're using grave instead of crown, and then you're having litter. The fire grave team does have Rapi, Ray, and Modernia as its core, and this team has a pretty good synergy with energy generation, and it can catch up to litter's cooldown because of having multiple machine guns. You can use either Ludmilla or Modernia as well, and that's the most common highest damage team. So the grave and crown team are roughly using similar units, so you're just gonna flip-flop whichever one works out better for you. And I would say those are the core 2 teams. Now following that is pretty much the Cinderella team, which is pretty much Cinderella and Rouge, and depending on what DPS you have left over is how you're gonna rearrange your team setup. For most people that don't have A2 or 2B invested, they will likely use Modernia in here, but some people would have A2 used and then they would use A2, but if you're using A2 then you would add in Blanc instead. But pretty much in this setup, you are going to be deciding whichever unit you have. And then 2B is roughly the same setup as Modernia as well. So you're just gonna flip-flop whichever units you're gonna use. And then for the B2, the most standard one is either Blanc or Mari. And depending on who you use with the Cinderella is gonna affect how you're gonna build your other teams as well. One of your teams could possibly be the shotgun team, and you could end up using the Tianaga there. But also if you end up using Mari instead with like Modernia or 2B in the Cinderella team, you could end up using shotgun bunnies with the Blanc and Noir instead as a combo. And assuming that you did not use the shotgun Tianaga team, then you can use the different Tianaga team with Asuka or Snow White. Those are the 2 more common popular setups right now with the Tianaga. And then next is the Mari team, and in this one is pretty much if you did not end up using Mari, for example, if you end up using Blanc instead in your Cinderella team, then you would end up using Mari separately. And so it's possible that your Asuka ends up in here. Or perhaps like if you're using Asuka with the Tianaga somehow, then you could end up using Modernia in here. But pretty much you're just gonna flip-flop whichever units you end up not using. And then this is just to kind of finalize the bunnies team, but these are just additional leftovers. If you did not end up using Blanc in your Cinderella team, these are the alternatives, but it's pretty much what I've mentioned above as well. You have the shotgun bunnies, you have Modernia with the bunnies, Asuka with the bunnies, or A2 with the bunnies. Actually, to add to one more thing is the Hood Bunnies combo with Rapi Red Hood and Red Hood as the bunnies. This is one other example if you want to set up and you're spreading out your damage distribution about a lot more. Your Fire Grave team would end up doing slightly less damage, but this is in result you would do more with multiple teams. And then finally, some other examples of some leftover teams that maybe we don't have is you're following the general standard of the B1 cooldown reduction and then the B2 buffer, which typically I would say for a lot of people, they probably, if you end up getting to this point, it's likely maybe either you don't have a shotgun that is in use or something else. So you would end up using Summer Rosanna here, or I don't know what you have left over. Summer Rosanna with Summer Sakura, that's one option that you could end up using. And then you're just gonna end up using, just making sure that you have a fire, and your leftover would be Modernia here typically, or Summer Sakura, or really whatever you have left. Now I know you might be confused with all those examples of teams that I mentioned, and so I actually set up like a different example sets for you to just like refer to, and I have personally tested these as well. So I have like one set here where in this situation I don't have a 2B or A2, and so I ended up using Modernia in the Cinderella team. In fact, this is one of my alts setup where I use Red Hood instead here, and then I use Maxwell here with Asuka. I use that for my free-to-play account. And then the next one is this different set where we're using A2 instead. So we got Blanc occupied. And then in this we can kind of divert. If you want to end up using shotgun, then you can use this set with the shotgun with the Tia Naga, and then Mari with Asuka in this setup. But then there's also another setup where you don't use shotgun, and you can actually do that, and you will use the Dorothy with Asuka and Snow White. And actually, technically you can also use shotgun, but you're not gonna use Blanc, you're not gonna use Tia Naga in that situation, so you would end up using a different burst too. But you know, that's up to you which one you end up finding useful. But this is just using Red Hood and Maxwell, and then Modernia with Mari. And then just this is just a random thing set up, and this is set C where you don't have any collab characters. For example, you don't have Asuka or Rei, so that's one example. And somehow you still have like Summer. These are just an example. And then this final example that I have is, this is actually my current one set up right now. Maybe I might change it up a little bit, I'm still testing things out, but this is where I was using 2B. But yeah, those are all the examples right now. So, and as usual, I'll add more if I do find some things. But if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and write in the comments, or just come visit me at twitch.tv/guylv. But yeah, that's about it. Good luck everyone, and I'll see you guys next time. By the way, did you know that 56% of you still hasn't subscribed yet? Make sure to click that subscribe button, click that bell notification, leave a comment, like, and subscribe.